gone, but I'm out on the road again. I'm on the road again.
How about the One Belt Road? A massive infrastructure project going on in China and maybe not getting a lot of attention, but it has gotten the attention of Eric Swergold. He's a money manager here in the Bay Area, Firestorm Capital, and has been looking at this for the notion of some investment themes. Eric, glad to have you here in our AM 960 studios out over the San Francisco Bay, which is rising to meet us like any road should. What's China trying to do here with this One Belt Road?
Thanks, Cory. Thanks, Carol, for having me on again. I've been following the One Belt, One Road for a couple of years here, and it seems to have become completely lost with Trump winning the election and the entire focus on Trump's U.S. infrastructure plan. But One Belt, One Road is really reigniting the old ancient Silk Road in China. It's a $1 trillion project, which is really a series of mini projects, which include roads, rails, pipelines.
1 trillion.
1 trillion US dollars. And in case you think that's a lot of money, think about how much more 1 trillion buys you in China than it buys you in the US. You can probably get about 10 times the number of workers per dollar in China. And even if you make some assumptions that they're only half as productive as their US counterparts, you're really talking about twice as big a project as anything that Trump is talking about here. And it was announced a couple of years ago, so some of these things are already getting underway.
We're talking about a ton of countries, right? This is a massive, massive project.
Yeah, this project is going to connect China through the rest of Asia, through Russia to Europe. I mean, they're talking about having rail service from Beijing to London. Now, of course, you're talking about something like 4 different rail gauges in 7 different countries to make that trip, but just the concept blows your mind. And
what is the concept? What are they trying to do?
So the general concept is that China is trying to do a number of things. As I've said previously, China would like to be able to control everything, but they can't, so they try and have as many levers as possible.
So would I, of course.
We all would.
China's got a better shot.
So they've got this big project going with lots of mini projects, and they can use it to pull as another economic lever. When the economy slows, they can speed up some of their projects. But what they're trying to do is economically connect themselves to the rest of the world and really diversify away from reliance on exports to the U.S.
Eric, that's what I find, like, everybody stop and listen, right? Because here we are in an environment where you have a lot of countries kind of looking inward, right? And they're just like, let's take care of the home front, and kind of pushing back on globalization.
The UK is doing that. The US is doing that.
Pick your country, pushing back on globalization. Look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Is this an opportunity, though, if China can succeed with this, to really kind of move forward, huge step forward in terms of becoming kind of the number one economic power?
Well, I think that's probably always been China's plan. I think it's a smart plan to diversify away from their reliance on the U.S. We should probably be happy that they're doing it, because the one-child policy in China has resulted in large numbers of unmarried men at war-going or military age. And so the fact that these people are going to be employed in building this project is better than having them put into an increasing military force. So I think from that perspective, it probably benefits us here in the U.S. to some extent as well.
So it's a good thing, you think?
I think it's a good thing for the world, and I think it's a smart thing for China to be doing. There's a lot of criticism of this project because you have unknown ROIs. People think it'll result in a lot of bad debt. But I wasn't around when we built the highway system in the U.S., which was built for the Defense Department, but look at the economic gains we've gotten out of being able to truck goods back and forth across this country. I was around when Bolt, Barrick, Newman, and MIT came up with the internet as a little kid, and now the internet has had all kinds of unintended and positive consequences for U.S. commerce and the tax base in the U.S. So
you're thinking about the cat videos.
So hopefully more than that.
So this also means, as you put it, a bid under commodities, a long-term bid under commodities. And if there's an infrastructure plan in the U.S., there'll be a big doubling that bid. And as you point out, the work's already underway.
So the work's already getting underway in China. You're talking new ports, new rails, new pipelines, new roads. Those all use tremendous amounts of steel aluminum, cement, basically every kind of raw material you can think of goes into these projects. And then at some point, we will have a U.S. infrastructure build out of Trump. I think people should manage their expectations in terms of how long that's going to take. I mean, if you think about what it takes to start an infrastructure project, first you have the architecture and engineering firms plan it, then everybody puts in their RFPs, then you have the environmental reviews, and even if we had no EPA, you'd have all the local environmental reviews. So these U.S. infrastructure projects that Trump's talking about are probably not going to break ground for another year. But in the meantime, we've got the Chinese demand for these giant projects. And combined with that, there's been a change in the world in terms of how the commodity-producing countries are acting. The CEOs of the commodity-producing companies, many of these companies are really pieces of national companies. And so the presidents of these other countries are starting to emulate Trump, and we're seeing some of the commodity producers pushing up prices around the world.
Which makes me think, like, you take a company, too, like Caterpillar, that has bet big time on the commodity play and, maybe criticized for being a little bit too early. But ultimately, if indeed it's kind of all in globally on infrastructure, that's a huge drawdown on any kind of equipment that plays into that sector and any kind of commodity that plays into that sector.
Yeah, commodities, whether they be cranes or Caterpillar equipment, all those things are going to be in large demand. But like I said, here in the U.S., there might be a little bit of a setback as we come to grips with the reality that Trump's plans are going to take a little while to come to fruition. But, I made a list before coming in today of the number of countries that are flexing their muscles with respect to various commodities. And so the commodity producers are watching this too. And after really 8 or 9 years of taking a beating and having no bargaining power at the table, the commodity producing countries are really trying to get their fair price or get an increased price from what they've seen in the last few years. I mean, we've all seen OPEC working on oil prices, and then this week, we see what's going on in the Escondido mine in Chile, which is one of the biggest copper mines in the world. Freeport FCX is having problems in their negotiations in Indonesia, so copper output could be curtailed. Bauxite, there's strikes in Guinea. Aluminum, China's cutting production. Steel, China's actually cutting the number of producers. Iron ore also. Grains, lowest winter wheat plantings. And nickel, also mine closures for the environment. So we've got the perfect storm brewing of reduced commodities coming out of the ground and increasing demand for commodities, which should create a persistent bid for a long time.
Wow. And would be a real switch from what we've seen over the last couple of years. Hey, this was very cool. Come back. Love to talk more about this.
Would love to. Thank you.
Eric, thank you so much. Eric Swergold, founder and managing member at Firestorm Capital, based in Mill Valley, California, in our Bloomberg 960 studio in San Francisco. You are listening to Bloomberg Markets. Cory, that was pretty cool, huh?
It's wild stuff, and it's stuff we don't focus on so much. It's not in our face as much, and they're not tweeting about it. That's really the problem there. Had they been tweeting about it,
everybody would be all over it.
But it matters.
But we're on it.
Big story.
We're on it. That's all that
Thanks,
matters.
Eric.
Yes. All right, everybody, you're listening to Bloomberg Markets. Carol Massar, Cory Johnson. Catch Cory on Bloomberg Technology on Bloomberg TV. That's coming up.